So a while ago, you shared something. I'm not sure if it was something that you came up with or if it was something that you heard somewhere, but it was talking about how artists have really great taste, and that's what gives them the ability to create really good artwork. And I'm wondering if you think about that quote as much as I do, because I found it really insightful. Like I have a really specific taste in specific things, and I feel like it comes through in my artwork. Is
Mhm.
was that like something that you thought of, or like how do you remember that?
Yeah, if it's what I'm thinking of, it was several years ago. Um, I think it was more along the lines of like our taste is far above or far ahead of like what our skill set is capable of. So that's like the driving force for us to like constantly want to try and be better at our artwork. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I do think about that pretty often. Like whenever I like sort of start to beat myself up like about the quality of a drawing or a painting, it's like not up to par with the artwork that I like to see. And I try my best to like remind myself is like our taste is always going to be ahead of what we're capable of, unless we're like, technically a master when we're like in our 40s and 50s. We're always going to be a little bit further behind than like what our ideal artwork is like. And I can't remember like where I've heard that from or like what sparked that. It may have been a podcast from several years ago, but I can't remember where I pulled that from. But you think about that often too?
I do, because I have a really specific taste in music and also in artwork. And someone asked me last night, actually, like what got me into creating art, and it was really because I didn't have I couldn't find the kind of art that I liked, that I really resonated with, and that was and I also have just always been creating like digital media, so it was kind of a natural transition. I'm also so like ADD with the ideas that I have that I like can't do normal people 9 to 5 jobs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
So like we
I think
have to
that's
do
I
this
think it's that
or
way for like a lot of creators.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really interesting way to start off an art career. Like you don't see the artwork that you like out in this world, so you just make it yourself. Yeah,
Mm.
I respect that a lot.
I think DJs are really doing the same thing, because they're kind of like curating a collection of like music that other people have created, and then like turning it into this like mashup that is something new that gives the music a new context, and it gives us the ability to appreciate it in a new way. And I really
Yeah.
respect and admire DJs who like will pour through thousands, if not tens of thousands of tracks to find exactly these ones that fit this really specific vibe, and it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, uh, definitely admirable work. I mean, I'm completely like live music oriented and like I love dancing. So like the effort that DJs put into their work is, you know, I'm beyond grateful for their type of work.
Me
I like
too. It's astronomical, like how much attention to detail and time it takes to understand like how to mix. And like being a visual artist, I get a really visceral sensation whenever I hear music that really resonates with me. It's like it activates something on my DNA. Someone told me that at a Psytrance party a while ago, and I think about that all the time as well.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
today on the Visionary Art Podcast, we have Florren Evergreen. I think it's the first time I've said your name since we changed it. You, that was all you.
I
I'd
mean,
love to
we're
dive into
all
that
us.
soon, but a quick introduction. Florren is a use Copic markers and Sharpie. Is that what you
Uh,
use?
I used to use mostly Sharpies and then I moved on to Prismacolor markers.
Yeah. Um, Florren is an incredible artist, and as you can see from this amazing tapestry behind him, he has an incredibly unique style that to me just absolutely screams Psytrance. And that's something I've tried to replicate because I get that visceral sensation I was just talking about. But Florren does it on an absolutely new level, and I'm super excited to talk to you today and dive into some of the aspects of your art and of your creative practice. So, Florren, how are you doing today?
Doing well, dude. Really grateful that you're able to get this podcast going. I've been looking forward to it for a couple years now, and it's been a really good day. Like, I woke up early, did my morning movement, started writing down notes, did my stretches and all that stuff. So I can't complain. It's been a great day.
Oh, that's great. It's just past noon, and if you're already having a good day, that's a really great sign.
Yeah.
What's your morning routine like?
Well, I try to wake up as early as possible because, like, if I sleep in, then like I'll get some like really bad back pain, as is the way of an artist, you know. So I like try to get up as early as possible, and I used to do yoga in the morning. You know, like I have a specific stretching routine for about 20 minutes. But then I realized like that was kind of contributing to like back pain and the misalignment of my neck and spine. So I've switched it over from like doing yoga to dancing. Like where I'll just turn on any sort of like bumping, easy, soft listening music, and I'll just sort of bump around, you know. It's not like I'm not going to be like thrashing around and doing all the, you know, like that midnight dancing. But I'll just do some gentle stretches and bump around my studio for about 20 minutes or so. And that really just like loosens everything up without stretching it out, without popping any bones or anything like that. And then, you know, I sit and have coffee, wait until I poop, and then I'll start working on some art. You know,
that's great. Yeah, I have to imagine that you've discovered that routine after many years of not really knowing what the right way is, or trial and error, and then eventually you came to this ritual, this daily morning habit that suits you in exactly the ways that you need.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's going to be different. You know, some people need to like stare at a wall for 20 minutes before they can do anything. And I respect that, you know.
That's definitely me.
Yeah, that's fair.
I try not to like stare at Instagram or Facebook when I first wake up. I usually go on Instagram because it's more visually stimulating. But that's pretty much what I have to do, because I'm like useless for the first 30 minutes to 60 minutes of any day.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I have always tried to avoid mostly Facebook. I definitely avoid Facebook because like there are days like I'll wake up not ready to get out of bed, but I'll like get on my phone and then like doom scroll for 5 minutes, and then like something just kind of ruins my day, and it's only been 10 minutes into my day.
Did you say doom scroll?
Yeah. where you see like some bad news and it's so visceral, it makes you feel alive in the worst way possible. And you're like, oh great, like what else? What other shitty news is there? And like we're almost addicted to bad news. And like in a subconscious way. So I feel like that's where the term doom scroll has come from.
I've never heard that before, and I really like that term because it does like activate that panic response in us, and like more often than not, like there's nothing we can really do about that particular problem, and it's someone who is like seeking comfort in some way by sharing their experience on the internet, which is, you know, something that you should do if you're having a difficult time and you're reaching out for help in that sense. It's also good to consider that like maybe it's not the best to like pay attention to that sort of stuff all the time when we can't really do anything about it.
Yeah.
and the algorithm just gives it more visibility. And I avoid Facebook for more or less the same reason as that,
Mhm.
because it does feel like doom sometimes. There are some days that I'm scrolling on Facebook and I feel like, wow, the world's ending. What am I doing with my time here?
Yeah. Yeah. If there's not much that you can do about it, then it's not going to do you any good as an individual. But I feel like Instagram is a little bit safer because it's a lot of art. Like there's so much art on Instagram. Like you can have these hashtags that pop up on your scroll of people you don't even follow. So that's the exciting part. Like you can just see some artwork from some underground artist from the other side of the world pop up because of a certain hashtag. And then boom, you discover this whole new world of like what an artist has to offer. So like that's why I like Instagram. It's much safer than Facebook.
Absolutely. But do you have any habits that you've created around social media to like get the most out of it?
Uh, I wish I could say yes, but social media just in general, like is extremely exhausting to me. Like, yeah, sure. Like I'll share on Facebook. I'll like get some advice from friends. I'll share my artwork. Um, but as far as like a habit or a routine to get the best out of it, I have yet to really get to that point. It's almost like a free for all. Like my use of Facebook and Instagram has been a free for all for the last couple of years.
Right, because it's anybody's platform. Anybody can go on there and write a software for a bot that will, instantly comment on things. One
Right.
of my techniques is before I go on Facebook or Instagram, I have an intention of specifically what I plan to do with my time on that platform.
Mhm.
And that usually tends to work for the most part.
Sure. Yeah.
But like we were just talking about, there's also things that might pop up immediately that are very demanding of attention and that will just immediately grab your focus and present itself as like something more important than me sharing this painting that I've just poured so much love and effort and have managed my way through multiple existential apocalypses in the process of it. And
Mhm.
it's amazing how it can do that. It's like our social dynamic is that we want to be useful. We want to provide value in some form or in some way. And sharing on social media is like kind of this holographic version of that, where we can send out these like programmable, repeated messages that are crafted within the context of this platform. And this holographic version of ourselves will go around and repeat the same message to multiple people over and over again. And depending how long that holographic version is around is depending on like how well the interactions are uh, with the previous people who have interacted with this holographic version of ourselves.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
very strange in like a meta sense. Social media is just one of the weirdest things that I think this planet has ever seen. I think we're, even though it's been around for over 10 years, I think we're really still just getting used to it and like
Mhm.
adjusting to this cyber climate of the socialization that we have.
Yeah. It's definitely in its like teenage years. Like MySpace was the infancy, and like now where we're at, like the teenage years where it's just a complete mess. But it's also beautiful and like we're growing with it. I like what you said about like being a holographic version of ourselves. Someone the other day mentioned how it's like a two-dimensional version of ourselves because like people perceive it on a phone, which is, like a two-dimensional image. But I want to like mix the two together. It's like our version of ourselves on social media is like a holographic two-dimensional version of our flesh body and like what makes us individuals. I really appreciate like your outlook on that to really set an intention before you go on there and post. Because like from my point of view, whenever the stuff that you share, like I feel like you're really good at it. You're really good at like utilizing these social platforms, whereas I kind of want to get it out of the way. You know, like I don't like sitting on my phone and like typing hashtags and doing the engagement. I like doing the engagement, like replying to comments and like what people have to say, their perspective. I love that. But the initial like posting and sharing and then like writing anecdotes about the artwork is very exhausting to me. But when I see people like you that can really utilize it, it's a fresh perspective, you know.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah.
How long does it generally take you to create a post? Because for me, it takes like an hour, and then for like 24 hours after that, I'm having these like somatic shame spasms of like, that text wasn't good enough, and these weird little voices that like pop up, and they're like, why did you stick your tongue out? And there's this other part of me that's like, because I'm goofy, and
right.
It's strange. It's very strange. It takes me a while to write content for the internet, so I'm wondering. It sounds like we have kind of similar experiences with it. So I'm wondering, you know, what that process is like for you as well.
Well, you definitely are goofy. I love it. It works so well. Makes me want to be goofy too. Yeah, like I'm shy, but like not reserved. But I'm just like generally shy and quiet. But when like I'm around goofy people, it really brings it out of me, and I appreciate that. It only takes me about 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
To post something. The way I see it, like I've spent 100 hours working on a drawing. I can't spend any more time talking about it, or it's just like a bit of a low effort. Like I'm trying to figure out, am I lazy, or maybe it's just social media that isn't my thing, or maybe it's a mix of both, you know? I just try not to spend too much time doing it. And
yeah, because when we're sharing our artwork on any kind of network, like that marketing aspect is like kind of a form of art in and of itself.
Oh, so true.
Like crafting that message and, you know, creating something that articulately and also quickly explains the general vibe of the artwork that we've created is it's so much different than the actual process of creating the art itself. And when we've been like just completely vacuumed into the zone for so long with a particular painting or drawing or artwork, that like when we share it, it's almost like it's a normal thing to us, but when other people see it, it's completely new, and it gives us a lot of really fresh perspective.
Exactly. I never really thought about that. Like, it's something that we poured so much time into, but like when the viewer sees it, it's completely new. And like that short anecdote about the drawing or work of art is only like a small facet of like what that piece is about. And I usually try to keep it simple, like let the viewer interpret it in their own way so they can apply it to it. You know, I feel like both sides of the spectrum is useful, you know, because sometimes the viewers love to, I mean, me as a viewer of art, if somebody shares this like 3-paragraph story behind what they share, I'm going to dive into it. I'm going to read that shit because it's usually like mind blowing. And I'm sure that other people love to do that too. It's just, you'll be hard pressed to find that coming from me personally.
Right. I'm that person who writes like 3 or 4 paragraphs.
I know.
And I always wonder if like people actually read it, because like whenever there is a story behind a particular artwork, that I'm always really interested to read it, because like there's so many things that can play into the inspiration of a work of art. There's so many little facets of details that might have specific meaning, like, or it could just be something random, like I wanted to put a dragonfly there. And understanding that is I think really important. I was actually surprised. I did a poll on Instagram recently to see like I asked like, should I just start a blog and put the stories of my art like in them, or should I like keep writing super long captions? And everybody told me to like keep writing super long captions, which was
Right.
surprising to me, because I wasn't sure if anybody like actually read them.
Okay. I think it might be because it's difficult for people to like find themselves on a different platform. Because if you make a blog, undoubtedly it's going to be on something other than a popular social media platform. So for the convenience of the viewer to have all that information on the post itself, on the platform that they're familiar with, they're more likely to engage with it there instead of going over to a new website to find the thing, you know?
That's so true. I always feel like I need to be creating some other kind of platform, like my own platform on my website, where that like gives a much more in-depth view that gives context to the artwork. But at the same time, that's like so much extra work to do, and more
Right.
often than not, people like don't want to leave the platform. They want to stay in that space where they uh, where everything already is. Like I've seen some Facebook shops that like must take a lot of effort to put together. I was looking at Rob Mack's Facebook shop last night, and like the amount of art that's on there that's by him that I haven't seen is really staggering. And his artwork reminds me a lot of yours as well, because it's got that like really vibrant neon netherworld kind of vibe to it, of like these mandalic patterns just like emerging from out from the center, and then creating this like machine spirit energy to them. And I'm just absolutely fascinated with his work, and also with yours as well. I want to talk about your art, and the you have this like really specific psychedelic fantasy mystical kind of vibe to it. Do you like incorporate elements of stories into your paintings?
I really try to. Um, Through the evolution of like my artwork, um, I it became like an existential crisis thing. Like I would make these mandalas, but I would just feel like they weren't meaningful, you know? And I'm not going to linger on that for too long. That's just like a general struggle of being an artist. Like this work isn't very meaningful. So over the years, I've wanted to incorporate visual storytelling. And honestly, it's like been one of the biggest motivators for me to continue making art. So that's whenever like the fantasy element of my artwork started to take hold. Symbolism, incorporating like my magical practices into my artwork has sort of like saved it, or else I would have just been doing like geometric shapes for the rest of my life, I feel like. And there's a handful that are really focused like on storytelling, like the Evergreen Plaza, or there's one called Go With Me, where it's just like this wizard with a regalia, like a certain outfit used to summon this like ancient angel that had fallen from the sky and fused with the earth. And so you see this wizard just like trying to summon this angel up from the earth. And it's called Go With Me, because the story of that, he just wants someone to like hang out with. You know, it doesn't have to be this like extreme visionary enlightenment episode. You know, it's just the lonely wizard, and he like wants to summon this ancient creature to share company with, you know. And like all of that is there in the most simplest form in the work of art, you know.
That's fantastic. I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, 'cause a lot of your work has this like Lord of the Rings almost like fantasy element to it that I really appreciate. So I feel like a lot of visionary art is kind of more like you've blasted off into the DMT realm, and like this is the specific super trippy psychedelic vision that's come back. But I think for a lot of us, it's not actually like that. There is this like fantastical, mystical world, you know, within our own imaginations that's just beyond the veil. And like the vibrancy of your art captures that kind of environment just perfectly. And it's really easy to appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you were talking about your piece, "Go With Me," which, by the way, that piece is probably going to be passing by in the background. I don't know if I told you before the show, but your artwork will be behind us as we are speaking on YouTube.
Oh, wonderful!
Or whatever other video platform this ends up on.
Sure.
But is there like one particular piece that you feel like specifically special about, or that like came from someplace within you that you're particularly fond of and it draws you back?
Yeah, it's one of my more recent ones. It's called "The Death of Me," and in this one, it's more of, it looks like a tarot card. It's really like visually inspired by Art Nouveau and Art Deco. And the theme of this one is like me versus death, the character, you know, like the Grim Reaper. And like I'm encompassed in this, what is it called? Like something that like an alchemist would like boil a concoction in.
Like a cauldron?
Yeah, something like a cauldron or like a vial, you know. It's me versus death, like stuck in this vial. And like on the outskirts and the frame and the border, like I'm just surrounded by all the things that I love, like roses and pine cones, swords, with a little bit of symbols that like represent me, like that I fully associate with, like the Capricorn, the symbol for Saturn and stuff like that. And I have, you know, I had drawn my hand with a paintbrush holding on to it, you know. So I'm just surrounded by all these things that I believe to make up my character. But in the middle, I'm just like fighting this battle with death. And it was hands down like one of the most painful drawings I ever had to work on, like physically painful, because I work rather small and I do a lot of details. So just, I'm like crunched up, like doing all this fine line work. And instead of like doing freehand lines, like I had a ruler and I ended up drawing, I think I counted, it was like 380 lines that were like 1/8 of a centimeter apart, just as like this texture in the background of the border, you know. And I kept telling myself, like, it doesn't have to be perfect, Florren. It doesn't have to be perfect. But then like a voice in my head would follow up and say, like, I know, but I want it to be. And like, that is the death of me. It is like this need for perfection. Like it kills my back. It gives me like neck pain, all for the sake of the need to get this out of my head and onto a piece of paper, you know.
Wow.
And you know, it's a relatively new one, so it has all of these incorporations of storytelling, symbolism, inspirations from old art styles, like I said, Art Nouveau and Art Deco. It's one of my personal favorites. It was one of the more challenging ones to do physically.
I can imagine. I have so much admiration for the level of detail and also precision that you have drawing by hand. Because even as a digital artist, where we can just do mandalas instantaneously, like that level of precision is. I think this a bit of the spirit is taken out of it, because like in your drawings, inevitably there's going to be little micrometer imperfections, and I think that's what gives it life, is that like it's completely symmetrical, except down to like a microscopic level, but still having that attention to detail is so impressive. So did this artwork, The Death of Me, did this have anything to do with your name change?
No, it did not. Because I've been thinking about a name change since I was a kid. And it's just always been on my mind. They weren't really like tied together, because I didn't change my name until about 2.5 months ago. And I made The Death of Me about 10 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to ask if you're cool to talk about it. What exactly like spurred that? Like, it sounds like it's been a really long time coming, and I think a lot of us tend to forget that our identity is not actually like a fixed thing. Like, we can kind of change our own identity. I was looking for another word, but identity is the right one, and we can make those decisions to be perceived in a way that we want, and like we do have control over that. So I'm curious to ask you, like, what like 2 months ago, what your thought process was when you were making that decision to go ahead and go by a different name than the one you've had your whole life.
Man. It's always been on my mind. My birth name was Devin Christopher Daniel Thomas. So it's just like 4 random first names that like I have like no attachment to. And it's bizarre to me to think that like our parents give us this name before we're even born. And like most people don't really like ever think that they can choose their name. And like we could choose everything else. We could choose what we wear, what we do with our life, who we interact with. But most people don't ever think to choose their name. About 2 or 3 months ago, I was reading this book, and in this book was a character called Orren, Orren. And I'm not going to get into the character or anything, but I remember reading and be like, oh, that's a pretty interesting name. And then I looked it up. I Google searched what Orren meant. And it's Gaelic, and it means the color of green from pine trees. So it's like that specific green that you would see on pine.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh, that's beautiful. And since I changed my last name to Evergreen, I was like, Florren Evergreen, that would be a lot of green. And then a couple days later, it just hit me. I think I was like drawing or maybe sitting in the sun, and then the FL just popped up in front of Orren. So I got Florren. And I was thinking well, I like floral stuff. Like I'm really outdoor oriented. And then FL for fluorescent too was a big element of my artwork. Fluorescence, floral, Orren. So I just meshed it together, and then I got Florren. And I used to just look at baby names, I would type in unique names and their meaning, but all of it was just seemed like some random name I found on the internet. But this one I was actually able to like formulate on my own. And I'm like so proud of it, you know, and it's one of the things that I have indefinitely. Like we have two things in our life. We have our name and our body. And so now I have my chosen name and I have this body that I was, you know, given since the universe was born.
Your spirit at some point in time was like, I'm gonna be that guy.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I'm just like, how'd I get in there?
Right.
That's really awesome though. I love that it just came to you in a moment, and it sounds like it felt really correct and true to who you are,
Mm.
and
Yeah,
very authentic towards like, you know, things that you've actively like interests that you've actively accumulated over your lifetime, and you know, having an identity that like you feel really proud of, even if it is just a name, as well as like all of the other aspects of yourself. Then that's something that is really profoundly beneficial to have. And I'm really pumped for you that you went forward with that. Has it been challenging with having people like get used to that?
Not at all, actually. Like, I've got the best friends in the world, and I just want to shout out to all my friends. They're so fucking wonderful. And so a lot of them really put forth effort to, you know, keep in mind my name change. You know, like we're surrounded by, at least I am, like surrounded by people who have identity crises all the time, you know, like people that realize that they're different, like they're different than their assigned gender. And so they want to change that, or they want to adjust to it. And then like they change their name. So I'm lucky that a lot of people around here are used to people changing like that, or realizing, coming into themselves, you know? So, you know, people will like slip up and call me Devin, but they quickly like correct it. And honestly, it's wonderful. Even if they forgot to correct themselves, I wouldn't really care. I'm not like super uptight about it. Some people have issues with their past name, with their past identity, through like trauma or disrespect or something like that. And that's always worth considering. But in my case, I have no resentment towards my old name. So when people accidentally call me Devin, it doesn't faze me at all, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would encourage anybody to really like ask themselves, like check in with yourself. Do I like my name? Does it fit me? You are allowed to change your name. Even if your parents don't like it, like they'll get used to it. You know?
Right. And it's really encouraging to hear that like that your friends and the people around you have been supportive of that, and understanding as well, because I think that's probably what holds a lot of people back, is just that everybody knows me as this name. Like how you know, it might be a long acclimation period before people actually you know, like are really fully used to it. Because even in my head, I'm like before the show, I've been like, all right, I'm pumped for this interview with Devin, Florren.
Right.
and yeah, it's I'm glad to hear that it's been like a really smooth, easy transition for you, and that, you know, the people around you are supportive.
Yeah, I mean, you're one of those friends, dude. You're one of those friends that put forth the effort that make me just feel so loved and appreciated. You know, it's invaluable, really.
I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, likewise.
So I want to talk a little bit about nature. You have some really like epic nature themes in a lot of your art. I'm just wondering if I'm wondering like how nature inspires you to create.
It's a good question. It's one of the most like unpredictable elements like on this earth. Like you go hiking you see all these like roots that are just entangled in each other, and then like there's a pile of dirt on top of those roots, and then like there's a tiny little sprout coming out of that root that's digging roots inside of the other bigger roots, and like tree branches that just go in all directions, and vines that just go and like fuck up everything. And it's just crazy to me, like how functional nature is, at the same time being like the epitome of wild, uncontrollable and volatile, and like a huge necessity for like any form of life on earth. And my artwork is really precise and controlled, you know, like I try to like think about every element of an artwork that I do. And when I go out hiking, it's like the exact opposite of that, where like there's nothing is in control. It's free for all. There's so much life, and it's usually like completely still. Looks like it's frozen in time from our human perspective. I think it's just like how different it is from everything we know as humans, like the houses that we live in, the roads, the establishments, you know, the government. Like nature is just the exact opposite of that. That's why I just like to immerse myself in it to get that balance, you know?
Yeah, it's that random chaos of life, the essence of life just fully pushing through literally from the ground up, and it looks like it's standing still to us, but it's constantly changing and it's constantly moving and growing. I can't tell you how many times I've hiked to some place that I hiked like a year ago, and even though the landscape is like similar, it still feels vastly different depending on the season, and yeah, you know how many people have been there, and how many times I've been there as well can also play an effect into like how what kind of experience that I have there. You know, if it's someplace that I've visited like 5 or 6 times, then when I go back there, I feel like I have more of a connection with the land, and that's something that I think is really really cool to have. Like not only because like you know the trails, and you know like I know that I'm not going to get lost, which is always a great feeling. I also feel like like the land is like a friend of mine in a way.
Oh yeah. Like if we're good to the land, then like the land will consider us a friend, an ally, you know, like as long as like we're harmless, you know, humans aren't necessarily harmless, but people like us, if we just want to go hiking just to be out in nature, then nature will absolutely welcome us. And I know you love to go hiking for that balance too, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the places where I gain insights into who I am as a human being, into what kind of value I provide for the world. It gives me insights into like where I'm supposed to go in life. And occasionally during particularly psychoactive hikes, I will randomly have mystical experiences that are completely transformational in a lot of ways. And you know, whether they're imaginary or hallucinations or whatever they are, then it's something that feels very real to me, and it gives me something internally tangible to draw on. Like I have one painting that's based entirely on this character that I encountered in like a split second. I had this understanding of this personality that was not present to me at all before that. And I've never had something like show up with that much clarity that I haven't thought about or considered at all in the past. But like she showed up instantaneously to me, and now she's a character that I'm like writing into my cartoon.
Okay.
Have you ever had mystical experiences in nature or just in general?
Yeah, there is one in particular that I like to share. It's where I got my new last name from, Evergreen. went hiking on the parkway with a friend, and as soon as it was like an hour and a half drive up there, and as soon as we got to the parking lot, I put on my backpack, and then out of his backpack, he just pulls out this little bag full of boomers. I don't know if you need to like edit any of that out, but
No.
and it was just completely spontaneous, right? And if I had time to think about it, I probably would have said no, but I was just like, yeah, man, sure. Like, we're here. I feel safe around you. Let's eat some boomers. And it was a place I hadn't been hiking to before. So it was like all completely new to me. And it was subtle. It wasn't like out of this world, mind blowing, nothing like that. It was very subtle. But I just felt this like immense connection with these mountains here in Asheville. Like, these are some of the oldest mountains in the world. That's why they're so like smooth and like grown over and vast, you know, because they've been like weathered down and they've withered away so much, and they're like receding back into the earth. And I just had this desire to like, I want to like forever be with these mountains. You know, whenever like I'm dead and like I start to dissolve back into other forms of matter, I want it to be in these mountains. And like the mountains wanted me too. I remember like looking up at this giant evergreen tree. It might have been like a pine tree. I'm not really too familiar with the species, but I just remember looking up at it, and I could have sworn that it was looking down at me. And then I like cried a little bit, because like I so desperately like wanted to be that tree. And it's kind of hard to explain, you know, like, as any mystical psychedelic experience really is. It's hard to explain, but it was just gorgeous. And, you know, I felt like an honorary evergreen tree that day. So that's where I picked up that name. You know, like, you know what? I don't really have much connection with the name Thomas as my last name. So I was just like, do away with that. Come here, tree. I'm gonna.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's funny how like when we're not expecting something like that, that's when like some of the most profound experiences can kind of like be planted in us, because like it sounds like you had like the absolute minimal amount of expectations with what was going to occur from this experience, that it like popped up, you know, as a surprise offering from the universe, which manifested itself in the form of your friend. and yeah, because I have had experiences with mushrooms where like I was expecting one thing, and I was like, oh, I'm like setting the space and the intention, and like it's gonna be like that other experience, and it's not. Yeah, and it's like something totally different, and I end up like having a panic attack while I'm like hiking alone, and then and then I like have a lot to like integrate afterwards, but yeah, sometimes when it happens by surprise and also without any kind of expectation, like just for me in terms of setting space for that kind of experience, that's something that seems to be part of it. And I think having expectations in life as well is something that can also create not the correct outcome that we're actually looking for.
Right.
Which I think that's really interesting, and thank you for telling us that story, because that's really insightful, and I think it's going to be inspiring to people as well to hear, you know, just what's kind of like just beyond the veil with these tools. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be psychoactives. Like it can be meditation, and it can be you know, just really focusing on our breath, and just our breath, and admiring the trees, and that kind of focus, because I think all these things are like really in our imagination anyways.
Oh
Sometimes it can
yeah.
help to just have like a little push like in that direction to really explore that concept and like let it overtake us.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I had a weird, I don't know if I call it mystical, but I had a weird experience the other night. We hosted a surprise party for one of my best friends here at our house, and uh, that night I was the first to go to bed. I was like super exhausted for whatever reason, and everyone else was like still awake. There were probably like 7 or 8 people who were still up and talking, and like it wasn't as much conversation as it was just like just weird noises. And like my friends in the next room over were like harmonizing, and there was like with their woo, just making noises and would harmonize. And like there was this part of me that was like, I wish they would stop because I'm trying to go to sleep. I'm super tired. Like I don't want to socialize anymore. But when they harmonized, I just felt this like blast of like bright cyan energy like come from the tips of my toes up towards like the top of my head, and it was like this electrifying relaxation feeling.
Oh
It
wow.
was very strange. Like I wasn't expecting to have that experience, and I'll probably tell them in the group chat later like, yo, you guys like chakra blasted me. That was I don't know what you were doing, but like keep doing that. That was cool.
Right. Oh, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, the spontaneity of harmony really got you, it seems like.
Yeah, I was like really relaxed after that happened, and like just kind of enjoying like the periphery noise that I was hearing from the other rooms of the house.
Wow. Yeah, thanks for sharing that with me. That's pretty cool.
Oh, of
I mean,
course.
cyan is like such a beautiful, pure color too, like almost impossible to like replicate. So
It
it's
is.
interesting like that you would have this like you said, a blast of cyan energy in that moment, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely like bright blue. Maybe a couple sprinkles of like super bright pink and magenta kind of like mixed in there. So I want to talk about your art process and like specifically like how you practice and how you've learned, because we've known each other for a few years and have been seeing each other's art, and like I have to say your artwork has improved dramatically in the last couple of years. Your figures are spot on, super good. Your color palettes and choices are just so juicy and delicious, and your compositions like they all seem really well articulate and thought out. I'm wondering what like did you do studies or just practice sketching to improve your skills? Like what's your secret?
I'm gonna say all of it. So it's important to understand the concept of like caricature, not character, but caricature. And what that is, you can apply that to like people, objects, ideas. So a caricature is when you boil down something to its most simple essence. So it's almost like cartoons. Cartoons are like caricature versions of what they're supposed to portray. And like they still register as what they're trying to portray. And I implemented that concept about 2 years ago, where I had all these ideas in my head. And when I went to go like put them into a drawing, you know, they were fine. Like the messages got through, but I needed to boil them down to their most pure essence so that way they can be understood. So like my color palettes and my mandalas and visionary work, like 5 years ago, I tried to like use all the colors in the rainbow or like all the neon colors possible that I had. And I wanted to have like all these shapes coming from every direction. I needed to boil that down to make it a little bit more simple, to make each work of art cohesive. And about 2 years ago, along with learning about the concept of caricature, I learned about the fundamentals of art. If I were to ask you, do you know like the 5 main fundamentals of art?
Line work, coloring, value, existential crisis, and yeah, I got 4. Are those right? Am I right?
I love that. So I wrote them down because like I always forget them. There's a lot, like there's a lot of principles of art, but like the 5 fundamentals is going to be perspective, value, color, composition, and anatomy. So all those things I tried to practice in a sketchbook daily. Like I'm not one of those artists that like draws every day all the time, but there for a while, like a midsummer of last year, that was me, you know? So perspective, value, color, composition, and anatomy. Those are the things that would benefit any artist from considering when making a work of art. You want to practice those and then apply your practice into a new work of art. So because of all those things, I feel like that's where I was able to really focus on developing a more specific style, boiling things down so that way my artwork isn't all over the place, and just have like a really consistent, cohesive style, you know?
Right. Yeah, because I know that practice is really important, but also studying those aspects is what's going to give us like literally that foundational knowledge of how to create an image that is interesting, and breaking down. It gives us the ability to break down other artwork and kind of figure out what about that particular painting or picture or sculpture is actually interesting, because once we understand those things, we can have a knowledge of like how it was made, so to speak. Did you ever just like look at other artworks and kind of study what other creators were doing in order to figure out those things and kind of find your own style, or did you just jump right into drawing stuff?
Oh, dude, it's so important to like look at other artwork with intention. You know, like we could be scrolling on Instagram and see this like really awesome piece of artwork and then like comment on it and then just like move on. You know, I feel like that's not really like an intentional way to study or observe artwork. Here in Asheville, we have so many galleries that are completely free. You just walk in there, stoned if you want, you know, no one's going to bother you. You can like study all of this artwork and sort of break it down and like think about the fundamentals of this work of art. And this is also something that I've been trying to do almost as like a chore, or like a chore that I really want to do, is to like study other artwork, study other artists' routine, how they get to a certain point. And there's more that you can like break it down instead of just the 5 fundamentals. There's things you consider like pattern, harmony, rhythm, movement, lighting, all of that stuff, you know, that when you're looking at artwork as a viewer, it's important for us as artists and a viewer to really consider those things. And another thing, when you go outside, just really take in how the world works, you know, like the physics, how 2 things interact with each other, how like reflected light affects a shadow, or how a building looks from a certain perspective, you know. It's sort of another chore as artists to Can you see me?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you're good.
Yeah, it's another chore for us artists to have to consider going about our day if we want to improve our artwork.
Oh, for sure. I like that you mentioned like looking at other artwork and also looking at the world around us, because there's so much stuff on this planet. We're so small in the grand scheme of like how enormous our Earth is, our mother. It's mind boggling. There's so many places that it would be nearly impossible to see all of the noteworthy places in one lifetime. But there's also so much around us just in general that we can absorb. And I like how you mentioned the other aspects of what to look for in other artists' work of rhythm, and I don't remember the other ones, but looking for those aspects of work can kind of inspire us to see what's possible and see what other people are doing. And just by seeing a work of art that's in a gallery or in a museum, it kind of gives us this sense of what's quote good enough. So if we can recreate something that's like at that same level of quality and level of like interestingness, then that's something that I feel we really deserve to feel proud of accomplishing, because it's not easy. Like a lot of my paintings are always are hit or miss. Like some of them I feel really really pumped about, and it just happened that way by accident or because I had a really good reference photo. Some other ones I work super hard to like make good enough, and they end up not quite getting to the expectation that I had for them initially. I've been working on one right now that I've like, I don't even, it's releasing like any day. I'm really pumped on it. And like all my friends are really happy with it when they see it, and they're like, wow, yeah. And that's the reaction that I want. But like I've worked with it for so long and like started so many things on it and then erased it that like I'm not even sure if it's good anymore.
Right.
Which can be a bit challenging, because like we were talking about earlier, when we're so like deep in that process of creating, then it's hard to actually know like what the artwork even really looks like anymore, because we're just so used to seeing it. It just feels like we're looking at our own foot.
Dude, it's similar to when you say a single word over and over again to where it sounds different. And it's just like, is that even the same word that I said 5 times ago? Like it just completely gets distorted. So like whenever you're staring at your own artwork for hours at a time, and you kind of like keep changing things, but it still has like the same foundation to it. It's like your perspective of it is going to be completely different than like what other people see. And that's a big challenge to like get past that. To get past your own perspective about your own artwork is like a mind-bending feat of accomplishment. Yeah.
Do you have like a collection of artworks that you started but just haven't finished because that's happened with it? I love that analogy, by the way, because I noticed that when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I was just saying mall over and over again, mall, 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 being an annoying 7-year-old. And eventually I was like, what's a mall? Like, the word doesn't even make sense. Who thought of calling this like giant shopping complex a mall?
Right.
I mean, it makes sense. It's just a word that has a specific meaning. But like, you're so right that after you say something over and over again, it will just completely start to lose its meaning.
Yeah. Same thing with artwork. Especially like our own. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have a collection of paintings that you've just taken like a break on to come back to them with fresh eyes?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. There's this most recent one. It was a self-portrait that I started in early December, and for the first 3 weeks I just went ham on it. Like I got the foundation together, I did the line work, I got the color scheme together, and then for no good reason I just didn't touch it for 6 months. And I just finished it probably like 2 weeks ago. And it took me like maybe a total of 15 hours to finish it up after not touching it for 6 hours. And there's no particular reason. I just didn't really feel like doing it. And there's other good reasons to put away a work of art and come back to it later. Like maybe I was afraid I was going to ruin it after working on a certain section of it. So out of fear, I wouldn't work on it for a couple months. Or maybe I just didn't like the direction that I went in. So I would just put it in a drawer and then maybe not look at it for a couple of years. And there's been a couple, like I just finished. I hadn't really shared them on like any social media platform. I just finished them for my own benefit, for fun, Yeah. Yeah, there's always like a handful of reasons why I stopped working on something. Some are valid, some have like no good reason,
So, some are just ambiguous. I need to work on something else at this particular moment.
Right.
So I recognize that like there are certain times where inspiration strikes us like a bolt of lightning, and like no matter what we're doing, we have to just stop and make that work of art. Yeah, and it's the smartest possible decision that we could make, because that inspiration is going to be an extraordinary motivator during the process to bring us towards a finished state of that artwork very quickly, or at least as quick as possible. And while that energy is there, that vibrant, fresh energy, that new life of a new idea coming to us, I think is one of the hallmarks of like exciting art, that just shows up to us really quickly and really powerfully.
Oh yeah. And inspiration doesn't last very long. Like, at least for me, like if I get inspired, if I don't act on it almost immediately, then it may take me a while to like feel that inspiration again. And we got to like note the difference between motivation and inspiration. Because you could be inspired but unmotivated to do anything about it. Or you could be motivated with having no inspiration behind it. Like they're not mutually exclusive. Sometimes the universe blesses us with motivation and inspiration, and it's beautiful. It's rare, for me at least. It's rare to have both. But any artist out there, if you get inspired, if you can drop what you're doing and then act on that inspiration, it's going to be like one of the best get shit done moments,
Yeah. Even if it's just like a little thumbnail sketch. Like I did a couple of those the other night when I was having trouble sleeping, and then I fell asleep like not long after that, but I got like completely obsessed with this sketch. I went to Big Falls, down on the Thompson River. I'm not sure if that's like clear at all. It's good enough, but it's like a 200-foot tall waterfall in the southwestern part of the state, and the trail to get down there drops 500 feet in 0.2 miles. Like it just gets steeper and steeper and steeper, and it's one of the most epic, mighty waterfalls that I've ever been to in my life. I am not recommending that you go there unless you unless you have climbing rope and you know how to use it. There is rope there, but you should like know what you're doing, because this place is dangerous. I went there alone. Don't do what I did. I had some friends at a campsite like further down the trail that were like, I told them hey, I'm gonna climb down there, but if I don't come back by nightfall, like you should probably be worried. And I wanted to commemorate like just the power of this place with a painting, and this idea was like so firmly planted in my mind that I needed to draw this place, and I needed to make it look like a toppled over cathedral, because it has this one giant boulder that just like sticks out of the waterfall and like just goes right, like it looks like a train or something, like going up a hill into a tunnel. It's one of the most interesting places that I've been to around
Wow.
here. And I want to contribute to what you're saying about inspiration and motivation. On the I think the third part of that tripod is dedication, because once the motivation and inspiration runs out and we're like, 20, 30, 100 hours into a work of art, then there's a level of dedication that we have to apply. Like, even if it's really hard for us to work on this painting, it, I think it's really important to just push forward anyway and do what we believe will actually bring it to a place of finishedness, if we do intend to
Yeah.
finish it and like turn it into prints or like sell an original and make a work of art that's really, really involving and engaging and fascinating to look at and just visually very pleasing. There's a level of dedication I think we have to apply to really push through that period of like, I should finish this. It's really close. But in my experience, that's the hardest part of the process, is when we're like right there. We're like maybe a couple brush strokes away from having this artwork completely finished. And there's so many decisions that we could make to actually finish it, but only one or two
Yeah.
of them would actually make sense for the context of the artwork. And
Right.
that dedication, in my experience, is definitely a muscle that we build up as we continue to do this and like push through those moments of doubt or laziness or the other things that come up like during the artistic process.
Fear. I feel like that's one of the other things, like doubt, laziness, fear. I love that addition. Inspiration, motivation, dedication. They rhyme. If it rhymes, then it's valid.
We should make a Venn diagram.
Oh my God, dude, that's beautiful. That's gorgeous. I love it.
Whoa, did we just like jump forward in time like 5 minutes?
I think so. Something just happened.
Yeah, whoa, I think we just like we just went through like a time warp or something. That was crazy. So I want to talk about Psytrance, because we met at Touch Samadhi events, and I'm just wondering if you could describe in your experience, like what happens to you when you listen to Psytrance?
It just initially, like, it made me like want to move. It made me like want to move around and do something with my body. It was like a meditation where I was able to, like traditional meditation, you're sitting still. And that's great and all for what it is. But I remember I was like 19, discovering this new type of music that made me feel like I was meditating while I could dance at the same time. And I remember not knowing how to dance to Psytrance. Like, I was 19 in my bedroom, just dancing, but like feeling awkward about it. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. This probably looks silly as hell, and then going out to actual Psytrance festivals and seeing dozens and hundreds of other people awkwardly dance to this music that's really fast. I was like, oh, so nobody knows how to dance to this. And really, it's just a way to like quiet my brain. There's a lot going on in the music, but because it's like so repetitive and it's like a hum, I'm able to just like let my brain and body like melt to this level that it's on. And to me, it's very meditative. I can just clear my brain. I don't have to think about anything. There's no melody or lyrics that are pushing their mood onto me. I can feel out what mood I'm actually feeling with Psytrance.
I love that description. And yeah, the lack of lyrics doesn't impose any emotions of the song. or emotions like from the music, it kind of like drives into a place within ourselves that's like just this pure energy, that's this pure like force of sound.
Yeah.
And that's
It's
yeah, because I always get these really like visceral sensations, and especially like the first time that I heard psytrance, actually I didn't find it as musically interesting as I do now, but I knew that I like felt something. Like it like activated this like this feeling that I get like when I'm on a run, or when I'm like just really in the flow and really in the zone with something. It felt like that, and it's such a unique feeling. I'm always really interested in how other people perceive it. What was
yeah.
your first psytrance event like?
Um, Actually, it's so wonderful that like you asked that question, because just yesterday, Facebook Memories graced me with a selfie that I took exactly 7 years ago. Like I moved to Asheville because I heard that there was psytrance here. Like I was born in Maryland and I ended up in PA for a while, and there was just no psytrance. Like everyone was annoyed by it if they even heard of it. And like I needed to be around it. You know, it was that powerful. I had to move away and like live in Asheville. So I went to a festival called Pangea in 2014. Didn't know anybody, which was fine. I'm like a bit of a loner anyways. And it was almost a little bit of a culture shock, because before then I never even looked at a YouTube video of psytrance festivals. You know, I had been to some festivals with like EDM and multi-genre, but the psytrance dance tent, and with the black lights and the costumes and people generally being introverted on the dance floor, was kind of scary, because I would see these people dance and like it's like they didn't have faces, or like they would shroud themselves, you know, because they didn't want anybody to bother them. I was like, is that person okay? Like, is anyone here okay? Like, am I okay? And, you know, after a couple hours, I was like, I am okay. That person's drinking water. They're okay. You know, it was definitely a little bit scary, but I met some wonderful people the first night who I'm like still friends with today. And, you know, like they were my neighbors at the campsite, and like they were my confidant. You know, they were just like me. They were just like everyone else. And we just wanted to dance, you know, and it was such a beautiful, like heartwarming experience after I got past the fear of like worrying if this is okay, you know.
Right.
It's hard to explain, but these days I kind of pick up like why people will like shroud themselves, or why people look really concerning when they're dancing to psytrance for several hours. You know, they're working through some shit. They're working through their demons, you know.
Right.
And it's a safe place for that to happen.
It's powerful. Psytrance has such a unique culture to it, and a vibe, because that was one of the things I noticed really quickly, like especially at festivals, is that the dance floors are generally more introverted. People are like really in their own zone, and they're like doing their inner work like on the dance floor, and you can like see it in people's faces. I remember one night I started getting this sense that I could read what people were going through very, very easily. Like just by like getting a look at them, I could get a sense of like what they were feeling, and it wasn't in like I guess it was like a weird kind of like people watching way, but it was so interesting because I was seeing like people having these same like emotions of like various things, like this feeling of like am I doing this right? Oh wait, it doesn't matter. And these other thoughts that kind of come up, while we're on the dance floor and like moving around awkwardly, and like that knowledge that it like doesn't really matter. Like nobody really cares. Everybody's in their own zone, and like once if you go a little bit outside of that bubble, then it's just this splatter of love and acceptance and peace and unity, and like we're all here to listen to this like super weird music that's like full power, and it attracts this like very specific flavor of individual that's obsessed with this neon netherworld, this playground of like psychedelic art and music, and it's such a unique environment. I'm wondering, like, how has Psytrance influenced your artwork?
It's like one of the driving forces to me being an artist in the first place. Because growing up, I'd always draw. I like to draw, and then like I discovered black lights where I was like 10 or 11, and then I discovered some like cheap neon markers and highlighters that I would like to draw with under a black light. And then, like I said, I was like 19. Then I like discovered Psytrance, and I was like, I would listen to that in my bedroom while painting on my clothes, like not taking any of it seriously. And then I moved to Asheville in 2014. And then after my first equinox, I really discovered that like there's a culture behind this. Like there's artwork that really like coincides really well. And I was like, hey, like I'm pretty good at art. So I would like that's why I started using Sharpies, because Sharpies had really good neon colors. And I would just draw listening to Psytrance, like the local Psytrance, and then, draw neon stuff. And it was wonderful. But I wanted to take it a step further. Like I told myself pretty early on in like 2015 that like, it's such a vibrant community here, and also welcoming. Like I want to have something to offer to the community. And I was like, these tiny like little 9x11 drawings isn't really cutting it for me, and like nobody had an expectation for me to do something great, but I had an expectation of myself. So I just wanted to make more of it. I wanted to work bigger. And that's where the tapestries came in. Because you go out to Equinox, you would see all these like, beautiful hand-painted tapestries that were blacklight reactive that help be the background and like help with the flavoring of the festival, or the little one-night dance parties. I was so inspired by that, and like I wanted to make some myself, and I wanted to like help beautify these dance parties. And thankfully, the people like that have been doing this for 20 years. Shout outs to Touch Samadhi, like the most welcoming group of people I've ever met. The folks who've been doing that for 20 years were just so welcoming for me to like set up tapestries at some of these dance parties, and it's kind of exactly what I wanted. Because like you said at the beginning of like this conversation, like you wanted to make art because you couldn't find the art that you wanted to see. So you just went and made it yourself. And that's kind of like my reasoning for these tapestries that I like to do. Like I wanted to see some more awesome artwork up at these dance parties. So I was like, well, I'm going to make it myself and share them with my friends, and like the visions that I would see while dancing, that's very important. Usually the visions I see while dancing have found their way onto paper, smaller format 11x14 drawings. the ones that have like a lot of visual storytelling and like the visionary style, as opposed to mandalas and geometric shapes. There's just so many freaking things that like Psytrance has motivated and inspired me to do. And I could see the same in yours too. Your dance floor paintings. Oh God, they're so fun to just like zoom in and like discover all these cool characters and like what they're doing. You know, it really captures what it's like to be on a dance floor at a festival.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that from the heart, because I feel the same as you. These events are like a really powerful source of inspiration, and seeing the art that is brought there is so awe-inspiring, because it's such it feels like a very authentic community to me. And I love that it's so beautiful that your intention is to like provide something for that community that's like specifically for these people who have come together for like very much the same reasons. And it's not like anybody has any expectations of us to provide anything specifically for them, but when it's like a culture and a community that's really close to our heart, then it's really easy to create from that place, because like you know who your audience is already. It's your people, it's your tribe, it's your collective consciousness that you engage in with the physical world. And while we're stuck in this human body, we can we can be with other humans that are into the same kinds of things that we are, and that have had like similar experiences to what we've had. And that's such a beautiful and also important thing. I've been listening recently to a lot of intuitives, and this one video from this guy that I really trust. He does like monthly energy updates, and he released one for June last night, and it was like spot on. He was talking about group energy and about how gatherings are like how we're really going to heal ourselves from the collective trauma that we've experienced over the last year and a half from the pandemic, and from being in lockdown and in separation. Like we've all been isolated, like not by our own choice, by like rules and regulations. And now that those things are starting to get lifted, now that we're starting to get vaccinated, we can actually be around each other like without covering our faces, which is such an important part of like expressing who we are. Where that collective is going to be what carries us into the next phase of existence. And this past month, like I don't know how it's been for you. I'd love to offer you the opportunity to talk, but for me, the last month, for whatever reason, has been like extraordinarily difficult. Like a lot of things that I've been trying to do have just not been flowing the way that I was expecting, or that I was like hoping for them to. And I think part of it is just that like we're still kind of like gathering our footing in terms of like who we are in reference to other people, after having been told that we need to be like isolated and have our faces covered for the last year. Like it's such an interesting and amazing time to be alive and witnessing these sorts of things.
Yeah, there's.
I also noticed from my sorry, I just want to mention this like super quick. The gatherings that I've been having and the conversations I've been having with friends have been bringing me like more well-being and feelings of like wholeness than anything else. Like even art has been kind of has brought me to like a crisis point, because now I'm at this point in my career where I have expectations, but having conversations with friends is what like gives me motivation, that like it is just my own perception that could use a little bit of tweaking in terms of what I'm creating, and it is just my own habits and rituals around art and how I create art that are actually kind of holding me back, because they might, while they served me in the past, they might not be serving me now in the present.
Oh, dude, that's super important to have that awareness. Like, patterns that worked for you 2 years ago may not work for you now.
Yeah.
And the pandemic was wonderfully terrible way of like realizing that, because like we thought we had our patterns down. We thought I had it like tight and locked. But like when we're all forced to stay home, those patterns like no longer worked. And so like many of us did these like coping mechanism patterns that worked for a month, but then lockdown, it lasted for like a year. So we're just like thrown on our heads and expected to like make a pattern out of it. So I can imagine this is the time for us to discover a new pattern, and building patterns is really difficult. So I could see why, like you said, that you're having a bit of trouble getting things done, and like whatever it is that you need to do has been a bit more of a hassle, you know, for lack of a better word. And I could feel that too. Like I desperately want to go camping with my boyfriend, you know, like that's the only thing I want right now. But I'm finding it like really hard to get those like 2.5 days to make it happen. And maybe it's because like the United States is sort of opening back up, and like people are going like full force at everything and all the time. And, you know, I'm like trying to like keep up, you know, there's forces in the way. There could be abstract forces, you know, but I'm feeling similar. Doing pretty good, but I think it is a time to like start to develop a new pattern to accommodate this like new chapter of our existence.
Right.
And
Yeah, because we've been, you know, we've been kept inside, and we're like, well, I guess I'll just do self work and integrate my shadow self, and that's kind of what the theme has been for like the last year. Is integrating this whole experience. And now now that we can like do things again, it's like we're finding who we are in reference to our communities and the people around us.
Oh yeah.
Which I think is really interesting and exciting. And the like the public gatherings that I have that are like, you know, advertised on Facebook, and where, you know, there's not really they like want to get as many people to this space as possible. Like they've been huge, like overwhelmingly so. Like, wow, this is a lot of people here. And it's exciting because like, you know, it just shows the need for that, and the need that all of us have to be together and be with other people who share the same thoughts and sentiments that we do, and especially within our own cultures, because like we were saying in the beginning, there's a lot of stuff here. It's a big planet. There's lots of there are lots of different communities for lots of different types of people, and you know the equinox happening in the fall. I'm so excited for it. I'm so thrilled. I think it's going to be something on like another level.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like one of the more interesting and maybe different than all the rest. Either because we all just want to, you know, throw ourselves in 100%, or it's just like we might have to do things a little bit differently for the safety, for the comfort. You know, there's a dozen different ways that it can go, and I'm mostly just excited to see what we make of it, you know.
Yeah.
Because like, maybe all those years that we would go, like we would kind of take it for granted, you know, with solstice, equinox, and any other festival in between, you know, because like they were so abundant to us, and then they were taken away. So like it'll be a fresh perspective, because we know like not to take this for granted, because like one thing going wrong could take this away from us, and it's something that we need, you know.
That's such a good perspective.
Yeah.
And it's so true, because, you know, we didn't think that there was anything in the past that could like, you know, prevent these events from happening. And now here's this global pandemic that has like trapped us all inside and canceled all events for the foreseeable future last year and last spring and summer, and then we're like, it'll probably be over by summer. It wasn't. And you know, it does give us such a great appreciation for it. And I really love and I'm grateful that you brought that up.
Yeah, it's important to remember that sort of stuff. And I mean, I got to remind myself that too, you know, a hug. I'm like, wow, I'll never take a hug for granted again. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about what's amazing and awesome about art.
Yeah.
I want to ask what's off-putting or challenging about art or the art process for you.
Yeah. I remember like adding this to the prompt. So it's a good balance because art can be exciting and then also it can just be like miserable. And there's a couple different things. Like the hardest part for me is like the ugly phase of a drawing or any work of art. And like, do you know what that means? I'm sure you've been through that, right?
Oh, like when you draw something and it just like doesn't come out the way that you were anticipating.
Something like that. I'm thinking more like there's a painting, an image that you want to get out, and you know exactly how you need to do it. You know exactly like what you want it to look like. It's like one of those rare, wonderful feelings, like this drawing's going to come out perfect, or this painting's going to be perfect because I know exactly what I need to do. But like once you're in the very middle of it, and you have like different layers, and like you don't have like the shading and you don't have the highlights, you don't have all the assets that you want, and it just looks ugly. It looks hideous. And like I'm working on the tapestry now, where I just have like the base coat of all of the assets on there. So it looks flat. It looks like a child colored it in on a coloring book. And because it's a tapestry, it's really big. And I walk by it and I'm like, oh, God, it's so ugly. Like, what am I doing? And then I keep looking at it thinking like, well, if I just like work on it, it won't be ugly. And it's just like this back and forth pitter patter I have with myself. It's like one of the biggest struggles of, you know, I'm afraid to keep working on it because like I might ruin it. Or maybe I think I've already ruined it because it's in that ugly phase where I know if I just finish it, I'll be able to like wrap it up and make it look presentable. And then there's also like the physical aspect of making art. And I'm not very good at giving advice, but I will say this to like any artist that's listening. It's not healthy to work on art for like 12 hours a day. Like those, I've seen so many artists give like really shitty advice where they're just like, oh, you want to be an artist, you got to like draw all the time as much as possible. You need to be on top of your social media game. You need to be practicing, having multiple no. Holy shit, no. Like, do a 2-hour session, get up and move around, go for a walk. Do another 2-hour session. Go change your clothes. Do some jumping jacks. Do another 2-hour session, then make breakfast or dinner, you know. Because I used to have that mentality of like, I would get so entranced by a mandala or any drawing where I just wanted to work on it nonstop. And it's an extreme detriment on our body to be like sitting down working on something for so long. And that's one of the biggest challenges is like, because I've spent so much time working on drawings for extended amounts of time in the past, my body's paying for it now. And now I struggle to sit down for even 2 hours and draw. Just take care of your body. Because if your body is like conking out on you, then your work is going to disappear. Your artwork is going to like cease to exist. One of my biggest struggles. You
That's
gotta,
That's so
you,
good, and that's so important. I've noticed in my own experience that sometimes, like, just going into the forest for like 5 to 10 hours, like 1 or 2, maybe 4 days a week, if you can, like, can actually be more productive than like doing a 12-hour day of work and in the studio of like, because it gives you that time away, gives us that time to conceptualize what exactly it is that we're doing and what exactly it is that we're providing with our art, and like what message it is. Like what you were saying in the beginning of that, I think is really important, that like, a 12, you can get more done in a really good 2-hour session of drawing than you can in like a full 12-hour day of like nonstop drawing.
yeah,
In some cases, like I have had days where I'm drawing for like 10 hours straight and finish something. I was like, wow, I need to lie down. And I think knowing ourselves, and like I love that you mentioned that, because knowing ourselves and our own limits is something that's so essential and important to creating artwork that's coming from a really authentic and really true place.
hmm,
However, getting really involved in a painting to the point where, like, for me, when I can do like a 5 hour long drawing session, there's no feeling like it. Like when I'm that soaked into the process, then and it's just so engaging, and I just know exactly what I'm supposed to draw next, or like I'm working on a painting that I've had trouble with, but I suddenly have this this breakthrough moment of enlightenment where like suddenly the answer is very, very clear to me. That's a really amazing feeling, and if that's happening, then like I want to make sure I'm hitting it, but also like taking care of myself is how I have those days. And it's
right,
how we create things that we like really truly love and appreciate, like, of our own work, because there's no feeling of pride like investing our time and energy and effort into something, and then having a piece of art that really reflects the original vision that inspired it.
of course, yeah. That's so true. There's really nothing like it. And,
Yeah, because
like
like when
we'll all
we
have those moments, and it's just golden water bliss, you know.
absolutely, yeah, when we have that moment of inspiration, and we want to chase it, we want to strike it, but it comes from radical self-care.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. We're coming up on like a little over an hour and a half now. um,
Okay.
what's next for you, in terms of your art creation and what you're sharing with the world? What's coming next for Saturnian Arts?
Great question. I don't know, but that's okay. It's kind of correlates with like the last topic. In the summer of last year and into the fall, I was just putting out so much artwork that I was completely satisfied with. You know, like everything that I would put out was exactly what I wanted it to be. And I was making really good sales. Like as soon as like I shared it, somebody would inquire about buying it. And like that's not my ultimate goal, but also like I don't make artwork to keep it. You know, I don't make it to like keep it on my walls.
Yeah.
Uh, so if somebody like wants to have that on their wall, that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And that was happening with like almost everything I would make. Um, and I was making like up to 2 finished pieces a month. I was really like cranking it out. I was like feeling really good about everything. But because I was putting in like so much time and effort, um, obviously started to get really burnt out through my own devices. And I want to say so far this year, January, February, March, April, May, June, we're 6 months into 2021. And I think I've only completed 3 drawings. And I'm like listening to my body, like witnessing like what life was like a year ago and what it is now. My body's really asking me to take a break. So that's why I've only had like 3 drawings done this year, and I'm really taking my time with this new tapestry. So to be honest, I'm really like not sure what's coming next. I know like there's projects that I want to do. Like I want to continue on with these 3D sacred geometry stars that I've been doing. Like I have a 7-pointed star, an 11-pointed black sun star, and then a 5-pointed star, which look like stone 3-dimensional mandalas. And I'm really satisfied with those. And I want to do one that's a 6-pointed star, and then maybe even a 12-pointed star. And I know exactly how to do them. I know what I want them to look like. It's just I'm kind of waiting until I could realign my body, because I do have a lot of back pain. I'm working on that. So that's what's coming up, is a good, healthy physical body from me. So that
Coming
way,
soon. Radical self-care.
yeah. I'm actually, that's kind of it. Like I'm going to take this summer to like really care for myself. The part of me that's different than the artist version of me, you know?
Yeah.
Plus I have a boyfriend, and like, I just want to like be enthralled in love, you know? I just like want this summer of just being happy, like sharing myself with another person.
Yeah.
Because we're just coming like out of the pandemic, seemingly, and I'm like just now falling in love. So I'm just gonna ride with that, you know. Like there may not be an abundance of artwork coming out this summer, but who knows? In the fall and winter, there could be something beyond my comprehension that comes out of my left hand, you know.
Yeah.
So.
And that'll create a really solid foundation of inspiration, you know, just being around someone who you really love and appreciate their presence, and who you feel like you can really be yourself around. Like that's so essential towards understanding like what's important to us. And it sounds like you're finding that, and I'm really happy to hear that for you.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience?
Be good to yourself. Like it feels good to be good to other people, because they like reciprocate that goodness and love. But like, it's so important, like you said, radical self-care. Like really take care of yourself, because like I said earlier in the podcast, like we have 2 things. We have our body and we have our name. You know, be good to your body, discover who you are, and you know, all that good jubies that goes along with it.
Absolutely. That's the good stuff. Florren, where can our viewers connect with you?
My Facebook is an open invitation for anybody to add me. I usually post only my artwork. I don't really post memes and political stuff. So if anybody like wants to be my friend on Facebook, you can just look up Florren Evergreen. I'm pretty active on Instagram too, which is just more artwork. And that's going to be Saturnian Arts. Saturnian means like of Saturn. So things that come from Saturn, inspired by Saturn, are Saturnian. And I think that's really the only platforms I use. Like I have an Etsy, but I think all my listings expired. So like, I'm not really worried about that.
But it sounds like Facebook and Instagram are the best places to get in touch with you.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, open invitation for like anybody to be my friend on there, you know?
Wait, so what's your personal connection to Saturn?
So I'm a Capricorn, and in astrology, the ruling planet of Capricorn is Saturn. And I sort of came into that, like realizing like my appreciation for Saturn during my Saturn return, which like I'm not really, I can't like spit all these facts about you, like to you about this like Saturn return or astrology, but I do know about like what is relevant to me. And in like old mythology, Saturn is like the old grumpy wizard in the sky. He's like the taskmaster. He's the one who will get things done with a big old frown on his face, you know? And he's like drab and dreary. And, you know, like that's me sometimes. Like I'm kind of moody, you know, I don't really smile all that much. And I look forward to being an old wizard when I get older. I'm only 28, so like I'm getting there. But if you see my artwork, you know, like all my fine lines and details, and I'm like really diligent. Just like any working of Saturn, you know, it's all going to be very articulated and refined, almost conservative without political connotations with it. Yeah, Saturn, love it.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. That was actually one of my questions on not my personal notes for this show. I was curious about, and yeah, thank you for explaining that. And also, Florren, thank you so much for taking the time to be on this show and to tell us about your art and your process and inspirations. I've really loved having this conversation. And for all the viewers out there, all the links that are going to be in the description if you want to connect with Florren on Facebook or Instagram. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Well, of course, a thank you to you, Brett. Also, like, super proud of you, dude. It's been, I think we've known each other for like 5 years now. 5 or 6, and just it's comforting to see a friend in their artwork journey just grow. Yeah, like we're both in different rivers, in different boats, but we can still see each other, and we're like, hey dude, the water looks great over there, I love it. And I love seeing us go down this like river of life and progressing. I'm super proud of you, and thank you for thinking of me for this podcast.
That really means a lot. I do remember that we like I was talking to you about like making a podcast like a number of years ago, and you told me to start it with like doing solo shows, and I've actually recorded probably like 3 or 4 solo shows, but every time I listen to them, like there's just no it doesn't feel like I'm interacting with anyone or anything. So it feels like kind of dry, but I've got some stuff like cooking up, and like, you know, you were like some of the original inspiration for that. And I just want to, you know, thank you for sharing yourself and your art and your practices with the world. It really means a lot. And like your vibrant original art style and your original vibrant personality is just so inspiring, and I'm grateful that I get to know you.
Oh, likewise, dude. Very much.
All right, awesome. Again, all those links are going to be down in the description if you want to connect with Florren, or if you want to connect with myself, that's where all of the links are going to be. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a good morning, good evening, good night, good afternoon. I hope you have a good day in general. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.